Instability of truth. What do you know to be true? What do you think is true? And what if I were to tell you that you are much more easily controllable than you think you are?
People never figure out. We all think that we're making decisions in our everyday lives, but what we're really doing is we are executing protective behaviors.
So the universe is just one giant mind that vibrates.
Well, the start of this video certainly came out with a whopper. The instability of truth. I never really thought I'd ever make a video like this, I must admit. But I was watching a couple of videos from different YouTubers, and I thought, why not? Let's go. Let's dig in. I've made a video already about personal truth, so let's have a look and see about the instability of truth, instability of the truth around us. I love that question.
What do you know to be true?
What do we know as true? What do you know as true?
And what if I were to tell you that you are much more easily controllable than you think you are?
And then the next line was that we are so much more controllable than we think, which I think is true. Even our own minds tend to control us more than we want them to. And then we have Chase Hughes. And I love this man. He is on the behavior panel. That's where I first found him. And there are 4 guys on there that analyze videos. They analyze body language. They're absolutely amazing. If you haven't checked out their channel, make sure you do. He says we are all making decisions in our everyday lives. But what we don't know is that a lot of those decisions that we're making is based on trying to run away from a certain amount of fear within us.
We all think that we're making decisions in our everyday lives, but what we're really doing is we are executing protective behavior.
And he calls it protective behaviors. I'm going to dive deep into these things. We then have the next man I watched, which I've been watching a lot of his videos. He's really cool. And he's got the strangest setup. He just stands in front of a board as if he's teaching in a classroom, and he writes things behind him and then he talks. And I happened upon him somehow. I don't know how. You know how YouTube works. We really know how everything pops up on our front page. I can't exactly remember the topic I was looking at, but obviously YouTube thought I'd be interested in it, and I thought, no, his thumbnail was so boring. It just had him in front of a board. And then when I looked down at the views, it was like 100,000, 200,000, I don't know how many views was on it. And I thought, okay, there must be something to this. Thumbnail is bad. He shoots with himself talking as if he's in a classroom, and he's got this many views. So that means there's something there. So I clicked and I had a watch. Now, the first videos that I watched had something to do with the way humanity has a way of instinctively knowing what truth is. We've always relied on what we see and what our gut tells us. And yet what he's saying, and it's so interesting and actually very true, is that when you're in the classroom and in science class is saying something completely different. So science class is telling us what is natural and intuitive to us, our gut, is wrong. And that what is right is evidence, things that are backed up with reason. We intuitively know that, well, we've always known. I'm talking generations, centuries back. Our forefathers and ancestors, the way they looked at reality was the universe is one giant mind and the atoms are vibrating, and then there's this gigantic force that some called God that is sort of controlling things around us, and cause and effect, and if you act in a certain way, then certain outcomes are going to come your way. The premise is that your atoms, the energy of the universe, makes up the matter. It makes up what you see around you. That's what we intuitively know. In science class, we are taught that it is our brain that makes the atoms and the environment and everything we see around us. In science, we've taught it's our brain that creates the mind.
Okay? And the intersection of these vibrations creates atoms. Then that leads to matter. Okay? But today in science class, you're taught that's the opposite. It's the brain that creates the mind.
So in the next little clip that I show you, Chase Hughes goes into, and I mean, this man has had decades of experience in body language and the mind and the brain and neuroscience. I would say he knows what he's talking about. He's done enough research on it. Right at the beginning, we talked about that there are certain protective behaviors that we as humans naturally exhibit. I think the bottom line is that all humans, all we want to do is be socially acceptable around us and to survive. So we'll do anything we need to do to survive. The protective behaviors, there are 3 of them: fear of rejection, learned helplessness, and fear of shame, or being shamed by society. We will all feel a fear of abandonment and rejection. So we try and stick with the rules. We try and do as Auntie said, do as Mommy or Daddy said, because we don't want the love to be taken away. And it's the same as in societal constructs, that we try and stick with the program in order to not be isolated because we're being otherwise. Learned helplessness, I'll go into that later on in the video. I actually got ChatGPT to help me to describe that and to understand that better. It's very interesting. The third is the fear of shame. We all have a fear of shame. I do not like the feeling of shame. And shame is a negative emotion. It's a negative emotion that is brought on us from society. It's not something we feel from within. We feel it because it's being reflected onto us by society.
We are executing protective behaviors that are shaped by 3 things. The first is a fear of rejection. The second is learned helplessness. Third is shame-based programming.
So in the next few clips, we're going back to Predictive History, this strange man in front of his teaching board. And he makes a lot of sense. And in this part, he says, the idea that the brain creates the mind and everything we experience, and this is what's told to us in science class, is problematic. Why is it problematic? I think we instinctively know, like within our gut, everything we see, that's what it is. Everything we feel, the energies we feel around us, this is truth. And yet science is telling us, forget about what you're feeling and what you feel you know in your gut. Look at the facts. Look at the data. Where is the truth in all of that? I mean, what is truth? Is it what our gut is telling us? What our natural instinctive self that has been developed through the eons since we were cavemen? Do we rely on that? Or do we rely on this new thing called science that has been developed over the last 200 or 300 years that seems to be saying that theoretically this is how it is, and therefore look at the theories, look at the facts, look at the written evidence, and then you'll know what the truth is. So in science class, we are told that if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. There is no God because you can't see God. You can't see ghosts, therefore there are no ghosts. There's no such thing as telepathy because there's no evidence of it. There's no past lives because there's no evidence of it.
This conception that the brain creates the mind, it's very problematic.
Before science, we were intuitive about the truth. We trusted what we saw with our own eyes or felt in our own gut.
Before, we understood the world metaphorically. So we saw that the world was controlled by these forces that we could not see and feel, but they were there. We gave names to them, the gods. Now it's all literal. In science class, you're taught that if you don't see it, it doesn't exist. If you cannot measure it, it does not exist.
Our science, in science class, we are taught not to trust our eyes. You must trust the data, the facts, the tools, the theories.
Difference is that before we were intuitive. We trusted our heart. We trusted our eyes. But today in science class, you're taught to not trust your eyes. You're taught to trust the data, the tools, the theory. So today is counterintuitive. Okay? We humans are learning machines. That's what we're designed to do, to learn, to absorb, to adapt. But school is hard because you're taught ideas that go against your own intuition.
I love this video by Chase Hughes, and he talks about all these influences around us. So often, they're actually just masks of who they truly are, the human behind them. And yet we are trusting these falsities, these masked wearing humans. That's where we're getting all our information from.
In this influence thing, you're arguing and trying to persuade or influence a mask instead of the actual human. Behavior is downstream from unexamined fear.
And here is when I started asking ChatGPT what unexamined fear is, because if I intuitively had to think about unexamined fear, it would be that if I have a certain fear, let's say a fear of rejection, I just have this fear. Every time I'm with someone or near someone, I'm already thinking they're going to leave me. It's this fear. It's unexamined because I haven't gone and looked at what triggers from past experiences has caused me to develop this fear. But let's see what ChatGPT says about it. Here's the quote: behavior is downstream from unexamined fear. You actually had something that caused fear in you. Perhaps someone abandoned you when you were a child. And downstream from that, now suddenly, even though all the facts point to this person loves you and they will never leave you, you still have that unexamined fear. You haven't dug it out and said, why am I fearful of something that happened so long ago? And here in real life, I'm still replaying the triggers of the past. What is unexamined fear, according to ChatGPT? Fear that operates beneath conscious awareness. So you're not consciously aware of this fear. You feel it though when it gets triggered. We don't even realize it's there. We don't question our fears. We just feel and we react to them. That would most certainly be something like trauma. I can't even imagine the men that have been out in the Middle East, the Afghan war, or even the Vietnam War. If you think about the fact that if they ever hear a firecracker going off, they would feel that instant fear because it sounds so similar to the bombs or the gunshots that they experienced in the years previously when they were part of the war. Look at trauma. It's a playbook. We live our lives from past impressions. We have fear of loss, rejection, failure, and shame. These are the big fears that we all feel. So these unconscious fears, they sit in the back of our minds. Interestingly, they then reshape our behavior in the future. So if we have a fear of rejection, instead of launching into a new loving relationship or even forming bonds with our own children, we hold back. It's a past trauma is being launched into the future and changing our behaviors. It also changes the way we view the world. So if the government or something did something to you that caused you to feel a little bit skeptical about them, maybe they told a lie. And that one lie has led you to never believing any institution whatsoever. That will be your worldview. Never trust the government. I guess with all of these unexamined fears, how many of us have sensed it, especially when we've been triggered by something, and then spend time in a therapist's chair to say, look, I had no reason to feel this fear. I was in a safe place. When that firecracker went off, I felt an incredible fear that was not based in the present moment. We go to therapy to speak about that and to examine the unconscious fear that's sitting there. Some of us will even go to having hypnosis so that we can sort of descend into that space of the unconscious and really dig into what the root is of the fear. I kept on asking ChatGPT. We went down a big rabbit hole, him, her, and me. So the next point that I found quite interesting was, how do we create protective behaviors from unexamined fear? So how do we stop that unexamined fear from taking control of our lives? We need to come to grips with the fact that our mind is programmed for survival. From the earliest times, from our ancestors, you did everything, or everything stemmed from, I have to survive. If a fear was created at that time, later on, when something similar triggered it, it was used for you to survive, because a lion roared on the side of your cave and then ate your mom. So 5 years down the line, when you hear a lion roar, your survival mechanism is going to tell you there's something very dangerous out there. It ate something before, so stay away. We unconsciously build protective mechanisms to avoid re-experiencing pain. So of course, when that lion ate your mom, you had a tremendous amount of pain. You had to reconstruct your life. It was traumatic. When that mechanism happens within inside you, when you hear that lion roar again, it's there to protect you. And ChatGPT goes on now and tells me about the 6 things that this unexamined pain will end up, you'll see it in your life. You're going to have 6 symptoms. One of the 6, all of the 6. Number 1 is control. You feel a need to control your environment, control the people around you so that you can feel safe. It also makes the discomfort go away, that feeling of pain and the unpredictability. So some people become OCD and everything must have its place because the fear of losing that phone again, it was just so traumatic. So therefore I have a place for everything. I'm being facetious now, but just trying to give examples. Number 2 is avoidance. Oh, wow. So many of us have the protective mechanism of avoidance. We don't want to feel the pain of losing someone or being abandoned. Therefore, we will avoid connection and close relationships as far as possible. It's a form of comfort zone. It's a form of a warm safety net around us. If we avoid what could possibly become a problem and cause us hurt, then it can never happen to us. Number 3 is perfectionism. If I can be perfect in every way, if I can do everything perfectly, then no one will ever be able to point their finger at me and tell me I'm not good enough. It's a way of us protecting ourselves from being judged and shamed. Number 4 is people pleasing. If I keep everybody happy, then I become invisible because no one's really going to worry. I'm just too nice to judge or shame or hurt. They need me. I can help them. Therefore, they're going to keep me around. With people pleasing, we trade our authenticity for safety.
I worry about people that are very nice. There's this belief that you're responsible for other people feel and you must never disappoint anybody.
We stay safe by keeping other people happy. Number 5 is cynicism or emotional numbing. If you numb yourself to experiencing beautiful emotions, being vulnerable, then you will not experience much joy in your life, but you also will be free of pain because you're numb. We all use different methods of numbing ourselves, from smoking to drinking to drugs to social media. Whatever the dopamine hit is, we're going to use it to numb ourselves out from the reality that is our life. Number 6 is overachievement or busyness. If I'm busy all the time, then no one will be able to say to me that I'm lazy. And if I can keep myself busy all the time, then I don't have to be in the present moment. And I don't have to face who I truly am. And I don't have to face what plagues my mind in the 3 a.m. slot in the middle of the night. The cost, ChatGPT is carrying on. What is the cost of an unexamined fear? Unexamined fear, it becomes the invisible architect of our lives. It shapes our choices, relationships, and self-image. And it does so without our consent. Remember, the unconscious mind doesn't need our consent to do anything. So it's creating our lives for us based on these unexamined fears. Many people live entire lives reacting to old fear rather than consciously choosing from their present awareness. Oh, ChatGPT carries on. So I then said, well, what are we to do? What's the best way to sort out the situation and not allow our unconscious mind to run the show? Witness the fear. Awareness. Don't be afraid of your fear. Don't be afraid of the triggers that you experience. Fall into that. Fall into what you fear. Fall into those vague feelings of this is not safe, and test it. Because you have far more experience today in a situation than you had 20 years ago when that trauma happened. And you are now 20 years later still living in a safety net because you're too scared of what is outside the safety net. It's a form of prison. It's a form of emotionally imprisoning yourself in a fear that is unfounded in the present moment. Fear is important because it's a messenger showing us where we still long for safety, love, and wholeness. So examine the fear. Say, why are you so scared of this, Lindy? What is causing you to feel fear here? Instead of just like, oh, I'm scared, I'm not doing this. I'd like to take the example of, from my youngest years, I was scared of heights, terrified. I can remember being maybe 10 or 11 and going up Table Mountain in the cable car and sitting at the bottom as this cable car swung in the wind and crying my eyes out. I was so terrified. And we got to the top and I didn't even enjoy myself because I just remember dreading having to go down again. Later on, in my late teens, I remember I was forced to face that fear of heights. I went on a hike with a bunch, I think there were about 8 of us, and we were on a trail, and we had to walk with very heavy backpacks on the edge of this cliff. And there was a point where I said, I'm not going any further. I'm just going to sit right here, and I don't care. I will die. I'm just not going to move. My fear completely overtook me. One of my teammates somehow got me up that mountain. And I can tell you now, since then, I've never had any issues with fear of heights. In fact, the very next day, I ended up climbing up a cliff face with ropes and belay, and it was incredibly scary, but at the same time so liberating to realize, why was I fearing this? It's not unsafe. You can walk on the edge of this cliff, and yes, in bad weather, you might fall, but it's beautiful sunny weather, and there is no reason for you to fear this. The freedom I felt when I got to the top of that mountain, overcoming that fear, was something that I've held close to my heart for all my life. And it's also one of the reasons why whenever I fear something, I do it. Because there's nothing worse than being trapped by your fear. It limits your ability to feel alive. Use your awareness, your compassion for yourself, your curiosity, and use it to dissolve your fear. You will find you'll have more authentic responses rooted in truth than in survival. Don't live in survival. Don't live in comfort, in a comfort zone. Jump out of that comfort zone, because it's outside the circle of comfort where you truly start feeling alive. So then I continue. Let's dig deeper on why humans are so easy to control. Why are we so easy to control? Is it to do with the fact that we so desperately want to survive? And it's easier just to go with the flow to be socially acceptable. And going with the flow means you are being controlled in some sort by a hierarchy, someone who is stronger and braver and has more leadership capabilities at the top. Here in the next video with Predictive History, he talks about why is there this massive programming of populations? Why does a small group of individuals feel that they need to control the population? And there's a very good reason for it, and it's not conspiratorial.
Editor Lindy here. I'm going to end this video right now, and you'll have to watch for the next one to see what is not conspiratorial. Make sure you see and wait and subscribe and check out the next video, part 2, on this crazy journey about truth. And it's going to involve MK Ultra and some very interesting other things I uncovered. See you in the next one.
Anything more than a user profile in some behavior experiment. And if you're still here, something in you already knows. I think the part of you that never signed the contract is paying attention